Yo, villain represents anybody. Anybody in here could wear the mask and be the villain. Male, female, any race. It's about where you coming from your heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the message? What you got to say? Before we go
as you call them.
Welcome back to Death with the Record. This week it's all things MF Doom. The podcast is already out, links are in the description, but let's get into the video. Now, it's fair to say when you think of Doom, you likely don't think of him as the kind of rapper who makes use of the highly personal moments of his life in his lyrics. He's clearly not a Drake type, rapping about you and the six and him and his old man getting back to basics. MF Doom is all about the uniqueness of his production, the lyrical dexterity, the flow, the elongated rhyme schemes, the sometimes nonsensical word association. As Doom says himself,
you never know what the dude's gonna say.
And there are other videos in the YouTube ecosystem that break down how complex his rhyme schemes are, how deep the illusions go. I mean, like
the grimy, limey, slimy, try me, blind me.
But with these kind of videos and retrospectives, it's easy to forget the distinction between MF Doom, the supervillain who came to destroy rap, and Daniel Dumile, the man born in London in 1971, who tragically passed away at the end of 2020. And really, it would be fair to point out that a lot of MF Doom's work seems to intentionally deflect attention away from the existence of this real Daniel Dumile. In an interview with The New Yorker, Daniel Dumile went as far as to describe himself as the writer and director of the MF Doom character. And by now, everyone knows the stories of Doom sending imposters in his place to play live shows. Dumile even once claimed that he might send a white dude next. It's not who plays the character that matters, it's the fact that the character exists independent of him as a real person. And this is a sentiment that Doom has touched on a lot. Dumile makes it clear that he isn't interested in the fame or lifestyle of the individual. He is interested in sound above all else, and it is this masquerade that allows him to center the sound instead of his own identity.
Then you get these corporate ideas where you want to put what it looks like to sell what it sounds like. But we dealing with music, so the mask really represents to rebel against the trying to sell the product as a human being. You know what I mean?
On one level, this has produced some really interesting conceits in his music. Think about a track like Fancy Clown. It's rapped from the perspective of Dumile's Victor Vaughn alias, as he rants about his ex-girlfriend cheating on him with Metal Face, another one of his aliases. Dumile the person is inhabiting two different invented personas and then playing them against each other. And despite other people attempting to do something similar, it's Doom who did it best. But to understand what Doom is saying on those rare occasions when he does get personal with his lyrics, it is vital to understand something about Daniel Dumile, the person behind the mask, about what happened in his early life and career and what that meant for his music. Daniel Dumile was born in London, England, but very early on moved across the Atlantic to Long Island, where he spent his childhood and teenage years. His first foray into hip-hop came as part of the trio KMD alongside his brother Subrock, and Doom at this point was known by the name Zev Love X. KMD went on to be signed by Elektra Records, a subsidiary of the Warner Music Group, and therefore a major label. And if you listen to KMD's music now, 30 years on, it's striking firstly for just how much it sounds like every other alternative hip-hop crew making music in the late 80s and early 90s. Now, I'm not trying to say it was purely derivative, but it does not compare to the trailblazing sound that would come in Doom's career. Seriously, just listen to this.
There goes no pause, just to be respected and resemble Santa Claus. Hear this clear, I'm a man, I tell you. No dreams or drugs like the slugs will I ever sell you. A man I am in the body.
Now tell me that doesn't sound like a mix of Tribe, De La Soul, Brand Nubian, and whoever else was making music around that time. But if you are interested in this stage of Doom's career, then we touch on it in a lot more detail in the podcast. Again, links are down in the description. Please go follow that, iTunes, Spotify, etc. Later on in April of 1993, shortly before the release of KMD's second album, Black Bastards, Doom's brother Subrock was tragically killed while crossing an expressway. Doom went on to finish the album without his brother, but then before it could even be released, KMD were dropped by Elektra Records, apparently due to the label's distaste of the cover art for the new album as designed by Doom himself. So in a matter of months, Doom had not only lost his brother and his musical partner, but potentially his whole musical career. It was over the following years in which Dumile reportedly spent some time as a homeless man, moving around trying to make music in any way he could, that he started to formulate the MF Doom persona. First, he emerged playing shows with a stocking over his head. Then, and I pray this next story is true, he apparently played some shows with a Darth Maul mask before finally settling on the mask that we know and love today. Which brings us to 1999, MF Doom's debut album, and the title of this video, the lyric that briefly let the mask slip. The album Operation Doomsday has been described by Pitchfork as his warmest and most benevolent work, and I definitely think that comment holds some truth. The second track on the album, Doomsday, acts as a mission statement for the whole MF Doom persona. Over a soulful Sade sample, the first verse is full of what we've come to expect from MF Doom. This is the guy who came to destroy rap, the metal fist terrorist. He's here to fuck shit up. This is the supervillain. But then the chorus hit.
On Doomsday, ever since the womb till I'm back where my brother went, that's what my tumor say. Right above my government, Dumile, either unmarked or engraved, hey, who's to say? I wrote this one in BCDC.
To me, this is the most blatant breaking of the fourth wall in the whole of MF Doom's discography. In this chorus, it's not even really Doom rapping, it's Daniel Dumile ruminating on his brother's death, on his identity, and on his own personal legacy. The questions he is asking here are hugely personal. Will Doom be forgotten? Will his music be an irrelevance? Will he simply end up as an unmarked tomb? Or will MF Doom sit above his government name, representing his influence and legacy in music? In an interview with XXL magazine, Doom was asked specifically about these lines, and his response was typically cagey. At first he said, "That's a while ago, so I'm trying to remember what inspired it. I kind of do bragging rap. I do the kind of hip-hop where the MC is more pointing out things, that's basically it." Naturally, Doom never gives an explicit or straight answer about what those lines referencing his brother's death really mean. But this sense of fascination with mortality, both his brother's and his own, pops up in other places all over his work. Everyone knows the classic line that opens up Accordion, and more recently he released a song with Freddie Gibbs that was literally titled Death Wish. Now, people who die young or have been around death from an early age often seem to have a preoccupation with their own mortality, and even sometimes a preternatural sense that they are going to die soon too. Look at Biggie or Tupac, whose work was full of references to their own future deaths, and in my opinion this is part of the reason why MF Doom's death hit the music community so hard. MF Doom was a character that Daniel Dumile played, and that character seemed to exist outside of the frame of life and death. To say someone is larger than life is a cliche, but it applies here in an almost literal sense. There are some people who seem so vital, our brains struggle to even comprehend the idea of their mortality at all, which is why it was so easy to forget all this time that behind the mask there was Daniel Dumile. Recently, I was reading reviews of MADVIILLAINY from around the time it was released, and I came across this quote from Tim O'Neill in Pop Matters. He claimed, "MF Doom's career is built on two of the most essential elements of hip-hop, appropriation and masquerade. MCs adopt new identities in order to transcend the mundane realities of everyday life." But I didn't personally think that was quite right. Daniel Dumile didn't use the MF Doom persona to transcend the mundane realities of the everyday. He used it to rise above the personal traumas of his own life, and in doing so he gave us some of the best hip-hop that has ever been recorded. We so rarely got to see the personal side to MF Doom, but the moments when we did serve as a reminder that behind every one of his ingenious aliases was a real man making real music.